And I'm back, and it is the afternoon of Valentine's Day, February 14th, 2001, and I'm going to go for a ride on my bike, starting this ride at Douglas Park in North Cape May, where the ferry departs. I'm going to take a ride over to Cape May and then ride through Cape May to show what town looks like in the middle of February. It's as you'll see, it's very overcast. There's no sun, not much wind, and temperature's about 30 degrees. Wind chills are probably in the low 20s, maybe high teens, but I've felt it much colder down here. So I'm showing the sign that is situated at Douglas Park, showing that this park was commemorated by Lower Township Rotary in memory of a police officer that was killed in the line of duty back in 1994. So this is, you can see over there where the ferries depart, the Cape May Lewis ferry terminal, and no activity on the canal. It's pretty quiet. There's a fair number of people parked here, just spending some time, I guess. And that seagull does not seem to be threatened or intimidated by my presence here. I don't know that there's going to be anything of particular interest on this ride over in the Cape May because you know, it is Valentine's Day, but I would suspect that there's not much activity over in town with Congress Hall being shut down still. And it's not actually as bitter cold as I have felt it down here many times in the past. But it's not a nice day, as you can see. But I figured that this is almost right directly in the middle of winter. So even though it's not a winter scene per se with snow and bitter cold and ice, it's still the middle of winter for 2021, so it is what it is, and decided to record a video showing town in the middle of February. My wife and I have been down for about the past week, and we're heading back, I think tomorrow, back up to Pennsylvania. Coming up on Harpoons on the Bay. And I saw a video this week on my wife's Facebook account that indicated they are opening up on April 9th. It's their opening day for the season. On the COVID front, not pertaining to Cape May necessarily, but to me personally, my granddaughter, the one that is the gymnast, the 9-year-old gymnast, woke up sick this past Wednesday, and she had a very sore throat and a dry cough, and she has a history of getting strep every year, so my daughter thought it was strep and took her to or called the pediatrician, and the pediatrician indicated that before she could bring her in for an examination for strep, she had to get a test for COVID at the urgent care center where they live up in Montgomery County. So my daughter took her to the urgent care center first to be tested for COVID, and they also tested her for strep right there at the urgent care center. And the test for strep came back negative, but she tested positive for COVID. So my 9-year-old daughter was diagnosed with COVID this past Wednesday. So, and the reason I'm sharing this story is it might be informative to some people that might not be aware of how stringent the isolation and quarantine rules are. So my daughter was contacted by a contract tracer from the Montgomery County Board of Health on Thursday, and she was sent an email with a couple of documents. And first it was an isolation document mandating that my granddaughter remain in isolation for 10 days from her diagnosis, day 0, and that all the other members of the family, which are 2 other siblings and my daughter and son-in-law, would have to quarantine for 14 days to begin at the end of my granddaughter's isolation period, which essentially means that my son-in-law would not be able to work for 24 days following my granddaughter's testing positive. And what's really noteworthy about this is that if anyone else in the family were to get sick and be diagnosed with COVID, that clock would start to rerun and reset. Well, as luck would have it, 2 days ago, on Friday, my daughter woke up and had symptoms. And my daughter's symptoms were much more severe than my granddaughter's symptoms. My granddaughter had, like I said, a sore throat and a dry cough. And that lasted, the sore throat was gone by Thursday, and the dry cough was gone by Friday. So she had very mild symptoms. In fact, she always feels worse with strep than she did with COVID. My daughter, on the other hand, had much more severe symptoms. She woke up with a temperature of 103.1 or 103.2, which for an adult is a pretty high temperature. And she had aches and pains throughout her body. But the worst part was she had a very severe, debilitating headache. My son-in-law told me that she could not even open her eyelids without a piercing, stabbing pain piercing through her head. So they went to urgent care, and as expected, my daughter was diagnosed with COVID on Friday. So my daughter starts her isolation period, and my son-in-law's quarantine period runs from the end of my daughter's isolation period of 10 days for 14 days thereafter. So he's missing a lot of time from work, and he's an hourly employee. He drives a truck. So he has a limited amount of sick time that he can take each year, which is limited to 10 days. And right now, it looks like if no one else gets sick, he's going to miss 26 days of work, 16 of which will be without pay. And my daughter used to be a school teacher, but she had to stop working when the schools closed down so that she could stay home. Where she taught, they did not close, but the schools that my grandkids went to did close. So my daughter had to give up her job to stay home with the kids, with my grandkids. So because she gave up a job that she could have had, she was not able to collect unemployment compensation. So of course, the most important thing is their health, obviously. But I was not cognizant and mindful of how this quarantine period runs, and that it does not begin until the end of the isolation period if you happen to be living with someone in the same household that comes down with COVID. you have to go through their isolation period and then start your quarantine period. Since I last made a video, my wife and I both have gotten our first dose of the Moderna COVID vaccine, and we are scheduled to go in on March 4th for our second dose, the booster shot. We really didn't have any harmful side effects of the first dose. Just a little bit of soreness at the injection site, but that was it, and it was gone the next day. But we are anticipating systemic side effects the day following our booster shot. There are some pretty significant, I don't want to use the term adverse, but I guess all side effects are adverse by definition, but there are some significant side effects that many people experience from the second dose. In fact, there's a Harvard, a New England Journal of Medicine article dated February 4th that profiles the phase 3 study of the Moderna vaccine. And it shows in there that over 79% of the trial participants that received the Moderna vaccine had some serious systemic adverse effects for the day after and 2 days after the second dose of the vaccine. And the systemic effects are just as opposed to local effects. Local effects are the injection site, where you could have redness, pain, swelling are the basic three. Systemic effects are impacts beyond the injection site, like a headache, fever, aches and pains, various other sort of systemic, body-wide impacts. And the incidence rate of people having these kind of side effects to the second dose are so significant that many of the hospitals in Philadelphia ceased scheduling their workers for the day after the booster shot, because so many of them, more than half of them, were calling in sick. So I guess it's still a small price to pay for getting a vaccine that is 95% effective, or 94.1% effective for the Moderna vaccine. And all of these side effects resolved on their own within 2 days of the booster shot. So the day after the booster shot is a pretty rough day for over 79% of the people in the trial that got the vaccine. So I'm in Cape May. I'm riding through West Cape May now, and I guess I'll pull over at some point and stop this video and make a separate video of riding around Cape May. This will be a video just profiling riding over to Cape May, and I'm at the corner of Sunset, where Sunset turns into West Perry, and right across the street from me is Broadway, and I'm on Seashore Road. So that's it. I'm going to stop this video and I will post another one after I take a ride through town. Check out what's going on in Cape May. Take care.